No guests survived a visit to this hotel. A strange roadside hotel has been repeatedly spotted on I-80 highway between Nevada and California since the 1920s. According to eyewitnesses, the brick building appeared in different places. The police tried to predict the next spot the hotel emerges. However, it just disappeared without a trace by the time officers arrived. It was pouring rain and my eyes were on the road. I could hardly keep them open as I was driving for almost a day. It took me a serious effort to stay awake. I looked at the phone for a second to check on a message. Kristen asked how the interview went. Suddenly, I was blinded by a painfully bright light. A huge truck came from the corner. I heard the loud honking and the roar of the brakes. My hands got sweaty. I tried to turn right. I felt the car swerving on the wet asphalt. I frantically twisted the steering wheel. The bright light hurt my eyes, but I managed to avoid a collision. Gasping for breath from anxiety and fear, I stopped at the side of the road and walked out into the rain. My hands were shaking. That was close. I took a deep breath. No. Driving another 2 hours to get home was not an option. I opened my eyes and was surprised to discover a faded sign down the road saying there was a hotel up ahead. The feeling of fatigue and stress after the incident came over me. I got into the car and checked the GPS. Weird. There was no hotel in the area. The road led me to a 3-story brick building. Lights were on in some of the windows. I parked, shook off the water and entered. A porter and a bellboy met me in the lobby. "We've been expecting you, sir," said the porter, a man with a tired face. "What are you talking about? I made no reservations." The young bellboy chuckled oddly. "When it rains like this, someone was bound to come, sir." He helped me take off my wet jacket, and his hand accidentally touched mine. At the same instant, something changed. As if I saw a hallucination that sent a chill down my spine. They were standing there, but they looked different. The porter had a knife handle sticking out of his chest. The bellboy was holding the end of a thick noose, twisted around his neck. They stared ahead without blinking. I blinked, and the eerie scene was gone. The porter, wary but quite alive, said there was a room for me on the second floor. I shook my head. Damn, how long have I been driving? I just need to sleep. The faster the better. "Come talk with the manager, sir. He will check you in." I nodded and walked into the back of the hotel. The porter followed me. A tall man in a burgundy suit stood behind the counter with keys. He had piercing, deep-set eyes and a heavy gaze. "Good evening, sir," he said in an unexpectedly strong voice. I greeted him and checked in. "Dead season?" I asked, looking at the place around me. I have not yet seen a single guest, and there were no cars in the parking lot. "Dead?" I thought his eyes flashed. "That's a good way to put it, sir. What room will the guest prefer?" He turned to the receptionist. The man shrank as the manager spoke to him and hastily answered. Apparently, they have strict discipline at the hotel. "Here's the key. The maid will bring breakfast in the morning, sir." I went up to my room feeling exhausted and sleepy. I took a shower right away to wash off the road dust. When I was drying myself with a towel, I noticed with surprise there were no mirrors anywhere, even in the bathroom. I wonder why. I took out my tablet and sat down to check my mail and job openings. At that moment, my gaze was drawn to the inscription carved on the edge of the tabletop. He won't let us go. And again, I felt the same feeling when I saw the hallucination in the hall. What's wrong with this hotel? I typed the name and searched for information. The results weren't very good. Some articles said the hotel was built on top of a pagan cemetery. Some links claimed the hotel appeared in different places and disappeared without a trace. Nonsense. I did not notice how I fell asleep. I woke up and heard someone sobbing. Someone was crying, almost uncontrollably. I rubbed my eyes. That must be one of the guests behind the wall. Suddenly, right outside the front door, I heard, "Why did you leave me?" I got chills. I recognized the voice. It was Kristen, my girlfriend. I ran up and threw open the door. Nobody. I went out into the corridor. The sobbing did not stop. How did she end up there? Kristen? Where are you? I walked down the hallway. For some reason, the doors were open. People were standing on the doorstep of some of the rooms. They had an empty gaze, not focused on anything. This sent chills down my spine. What's going on here? At the end of the corridor, close to the door, someone was standing with their back turned to me. He heard my steps and began to turn. A primal fear rushed upon me, and I saw red eyes on a face hidden by a shadow. I screamed out of fear and immediately woke up. Damn it! It was the middle of the night. I got up from the table and checked to see if I had closed the door. I remembered the girl's voice. It was just a bad dream. I was exhausted and fell asleep while sitting. I turned off my tablet and drank some water. My hands were trembling violently. Suddenly, I felt the room was getting very cold. A weird temperature for August. I wrapped myself in a blanket and decided to look out into the corridor. I couldn't stop thinking about that dream. Of course, no one was there. All rooms were closed. I locked the door. It's time to have a good sleep and leave right away in the morning. I went to bed and was paralyzed with fear. Instead of a bed, there was an open coffin. Black enameled coffin with white lining. How did it get here? I got weak in the knees and I fell and woke up again. This time for real. What was that? I jumped up, knocked over a chair. It was terribly cold in the room. It was not a dream. Besides, for some reason it smelled of damp earth and clay. I looked at the bed in dismay and turned on the light. What happened to me? Why am I still here? I've had enough. I packed my things and carefully opened the door. The light was on in the corridor. I walked resolutely towards the stairs. I'll pay for the night and leave. Staying here is insane. With these thoughts, I went down to the first floor, but there was no hall. I again found myself in front of the stairs. My heart was pounding. I went down again and ended up in the same place. I felt a lump in my throat. Am I still sleeping? I pinched myself. Damn it, I shouldn't have come to this hotel. I decided to open the door to another room to ask for help. I knocked and then pulled the handle. Behind the first door, there was an empty room, similar to mine. Lights were on everywhere. The second room was the same. I had a nasty feeling about it. I went into the room and saw the chair lying on the floor. The one I dropped. This was my room. Behind all the doors. My mind was racing. I was at a total loss. It took me some effort to dial Kristen's number. The subscriber is outside of the network coverage area. Damn it. Then I called 911. Beeps and silence. The clock showed 9 in the morning. I clutched my head. How do I get out? I began to choke with anxiety, and then someone knocked on the door. I jumped at the sound and grabbed the desk lamp like a club. The door opened slowly and a maid entered the room. She greeted me politely and placed a tray of food and a newspaper on the table. How else can I be of service, sir? I couldn't believe my eyes. What's going on in this hotel? The maid advised me to calm down and read the newspaper. I reached out to her to find out the truth, but as soon as I touched her hand, I was overwhelmed by illusion again. The girl floated without touching the floor and was drowning in invisible water. She moved her arms and legs, trying to reach the surface, her hair fluttering. The poor girl wanted to say something, but only opened her mouth in a silent request. Scared and confused, I took a step back, tripped over an overturned chair and fell. When I got up, the door was already closed and the maid was gone. I looked at the food with no desire to eat, and then turned away in disgust, trying not to vomit. Fat white worms swarmed in the sandwich and boiled eggs. Flies covered the dessert. Everything messed up in my head. Seems like I'm losing my mind. I tossed the tray aside and my gaze fell on the newspaper. For some reason, I saw my last name there. What is it? Tragic accident on the I-80 highway, read the headline. I opened the page. The driver died on the spot, and a photo of my wrecked car. How? I didn't get into the accident. It can't be. I read the article. The newspaper fell from my weakened hands. I was shaking. How is this possible? But what if this is a stupid prank? It was a hopeful thought. I rushed into the corridor and then downstairs. This time I was lucky and found myself in the lobby. The porter calmly said to the bellboy, "The contract is up. I will leave you. It is time to rest." I screamed, "What the hell is going on in your hotel? I'm leaving. Take my stuff to the car." The bellboy glanced at the porter, bewildered. It seems he hasn't realized yet. "To the car, sir?" asked the porter calmly. "What are you talking about?" I clenched my fists, ran out into the street and headed for the parking lot, but after making just a few steps, I froze on the spot. There was only darkness around, and nothing else. What is this supposed to mean? After all, the clock showed morning. I backed away on stiff legs. The hotel was behind me. I didn't want to go back. I had a feeling that if I went in now, I would never go out again. I was trapped. At that moment, huge red eyes flashed over the horizon. They lit the hotel with crimson light, and I felt like I was losing my mind. Crooked horns grew slightly above the eyes like branches. I heard a strange humming sound. I screamed and rushed back to the hotel. I felt a terrifying look piercing my back. As soon as I was inside, the manager loomed over me, appearing out of nowhere. "What's going on?" I asked in a hoarse voice. I was so scared my throat became dry. "Don't you get it yet?" I closed my eyes and shook my head nervously. Deep down, maybe I realized what happened, but my heart refused to believe it. "You are dead," He confirmed my fears and took a small mirror out of his pocket. I saw myself in it, motionless, in a wrecked car, an empty, lifeless stare. No! How could it be? I covered my face in fear. Here, everything is fine, said the maid, who happened to be nearby. I could not accept it for a long time either. You'll get used to it, said the bellboy. The manager coughed and they fell silent.
You seem to have been looking for a job?
He grinned.
Consider you found it. Try on the porter's suit. I let the previous one go after his contract was up.
I opened my eyes because the manager's voice changed and now filled the entire space and echoed. I looked at him and shuddered. He got taller. His shadow covered all three of us. Red eyes glowing on a dark face. Very old eyes that saw a lot. They paralyzed and forced to submit. Crooked horns branched over the head of the manager. A drawn-out rumble could be heard from everywhere.
Get used to the cold. And don't look for your belongings and a car. They are not there. They were memories. They will soon disappear. And one last thing. Be nice to your guests. It's your job now. And they sometimes act weird.